Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of childhood sexual assault, relationship trauma and emotional abuse, infertility and childlessness, body image, health struggles and burnout, grief around identity, and societal expectations for women. Our goal is to share real life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion.
Welcome back, everyone, to Radiant Resilience. I am so excited for this conversation today. I have a very special friend, Sally Trnka. She is a woman strutting through her 40s with her head held higher than ever. Her feet are firmly rooted in self-awareness and a deep love for life, and she remains endlessly curious about the world around her. While her formal education, undergraduate studies in political science and Spanish, that was new. I didn't know that.
Hola.
Followed by a graduate degree in business administration, has certainly shaped her. It's been scrappy, hard-earned lessons of life that have brought her to this place of deep gratitude and fierce love for an increasingly complex world, which is so true. Hi,
Right.
Sally. How are you?
Hi, Tawny. I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on here. So, for
Thank you
those
for having me.
listening, yeah, Sally is actually one of my clients at the salon. And we've just had some really great conversations, really deep conversations in the salon. And so I asked her to come on here and share a little bit about herself and where she's at in life. And I think that will really resonate for a lot of my female listeners. Yeah, Sally, give me a little bit of background. I know a little bit of your background, but yeah, go ahead and share some of your early life things.
Thanks, Tawny. I'm so excited to be with you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel so
Yeah.
flattered. So let's see. I was born and raised in the beautiful city of Duluth, Minnesota, which is right on the tip of Lake Superior and is a beautifully situated city with really wonderful community-based people. And that's where I've spent the majority of my life. I left for 5 years for my undergraduate degree, but I didn't go too far and then moved back home. My whole family is from that area and around that area. And that's where my life was centered for a really long time. And I had the opportunity actually to move out to Denver for a job, let's see, probably about 11 years ago. And the job wasn't the right fit, but I fell in love with Denver and with Colorado, and always knew I wanted to end up back here. But I moved back home to Minnesota for both for a relationship as well as for another really incredible job opportunity. Always knowing that I wanted to end up back here, and
Yeah.
so I found myself a few years ago on the precipice of 40 and recently single after an 11-year relationship that had its challenges, let's
Mm.
just say. I was in a very long-term relationship with my high school sweetheart who we kept finding our ways back to each other. I know you know a little bit about that.
Me and my husband found each other. We broke up for, I don't know, a
A
summer.
second.
Yeah, back in like we started dating his senior year of high school, then we broke up for a summer, and then we got back together and have been together ever since. So we didn't do the back and forth thing as often, but I know a lot
Yeah,
of people
that's
that did.
true.
Especially because in your 20s and early 20s, if you're going to college and things like that, there's so much self-discovery happening in that time
Hmm.
period. Yeah, and I think some people grow together through that journey, which I think is I'm very fortunate that my husband and I did, but like some people grow apart.
Yeah, and so we were together in high school and then broke up and dated briefly in college and then broke up. And then after a number of years and relationships on both of our parts, we found our way back to one another. And it's really interesting. So obviously I'm single now and have been for about 2.5 years. And it's interesting because I'm starting my dating journey for arguably like the first time.
Mm.
I had never been on a date with a stranger until this last February. I'd always known
Ah.
everybody who I dated. And I took 2 years off from dating really intentionally to heal. There was a lot of damage that was done in the years of my relationship, not entirely attributable to the relationship. Life just happened, right? And I knew I needed to do a lot of work on myself. But I also have realized now that I've been out there dating that my whole construct of romantic love is built on this idea that I had when I was 16, because
Mm.
my ex is somebody who I loved for all that from age 16 until age 40. And so I'm now having to, as great as I feel in myself and in my own skin, I'm having to really figure out like what does romantic love mean to me? Because
Mm.
it can't just be based on it's all great and sweet and wonderful when you're 16, but it looks different for every individual. And so that's actually been a really interesting kind of byproduct of dating, is me getting to define what romantic love means to me in a really different way, because obviously what I've done in the past has led me to where I am, and I've walked down those roads and I don't need to visit them again. So I'm trying to write a new script, and it's actually really exciting. So I found myself on the cusp of 40, single for the first time in 20 some years, and also realizing that I needed to make all sorts of changes in my life. So in the last 2 years, I moved out to Denver. I ended a 10-year professional role. And through working with an executive coach, she highly encouraged me to take a sabbatical and really figure out and do a lot of work and deep digging into what is it that makes me light up professionally, which has been an incredible experience. And so it's just been a really humbling few months to be
Mm.
single in a new place without your professional identity, which so many of us tie the entirety of our identity to our job title, which I did for a really long time too. And so it's humbling for me to, when I meet people, I really have to stand on who I am. I can't hide
Mm.
behind titles or relationships. It's this is Sally. And it's a lot, but it's really an exciting time in my life. And I truly have never been happier.
So when you went to school for political science and
And
Spanish,
Spanish.
that more, I think we put so much pressure on 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds to
Yes, agreed.
decide what they want to be for the rest of their lives and what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And then a lot of people pick a avenue and then just stay in it whether they like it or not because they did the schooling and all that stuff and that's all they know. And it's scary to do a whole turnaround
Different
for
thing. Yeah.
that. So do you feel like that was where you were with that at that age, and or do you have a passion for political science and all that stuff that you were doing before?
Great question. So it's a little bit of all of the above. I had the opportunity to go to a language magnet school when I was in elementary school, and we learned a couple of different languages, and Spanish was one of them. And I am not one to be a 5-year planner, but I marched home from school in third grade and told my mom declaratively, I am going to get a degree in Spanish. And honestly, making that declaration got me through the last year of my curriculum, I swear. But I experienced just how eye-opening the world can be if you speak another
Mm.
language. And so for me, the desire to learn and master another language was more about seeking connection with other people than it was about the hard skills of it. But when I was in undergrad, I wanted to go to law school and work
Oh.
for like an immigrant law center or something along those lines. Yeah. And then there was also another part of me. I grew up in a family and in a church community that was really rooted in service. And I always wanted to serve in public office. So the political science degree gave me the formal education to prepare myself for law school. I obviously didn't end up going to law school, which was a really good decision, hard decision, but a good decision on my part. But I did end up going on to serve in public office. I was on the school board for 4 years in Duluth, which was an incredible experience. And I'm really glad that I did it. It reshaped some of my future goals. It's but in a way that I couldn't have, giving me a sense of reality that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't done that, and sticking to what I really wanted to show up for my community in a different way. And so that gave me the opportunity to do that too.
So now you're trying to we spend so much time working in our lives.
Working
Yes,
tons.
at
Yes.
work, doing whatever we're doing. And if you are hating your job or it's not something that's lighting you up and bringing you joy, and I think that happens to a lot of people. A lot of people get stuck
Tons.
in jobs like that. So I know you're still discovering all of this, but where are you
Yeah.
at with that right now? What are you learning about yourself with that
Sure.
professionally?
Yeah. So my last job, I was the executive director of a not-for-profit that supported federally qualified health centers, which provide healthcare to the uninsured and the underinsured, marginalized populations. And we also did a lot of work in health information technology. And it was an incredible job. I was so lucky to have all of the opportunities that I had, and to build and grow a dynamic organization for 10 years is an incredible responsibility. And I burned myself way out, as did a number of us during COVID years, right? Like, then I probably, if I'm honest, I probably hung on to the job a little bit longer than I should have. And so I probably should have left 6 months before I did, but you create this sense of loyalty to, whether it's to that part of your identity or to an organization or to people. I think a lot of that ends up being rooted in fear, right? Like the fear of
Mm,
change and the fear
yeah.
of not having something that you've had for 10 years. But I had the privilege, like I mentioned earlier, of working with this really incredible woman who's a coach for people in executive positions. And we spent about 6 months working together, really digging into what is it that what are the ways in which I feel validated in a
Mm.
professional setting? What are experiences that have stayed with me for positive reasons as opposed to negative reasons? Where is there overlap and synergy between skills, abilities, and experience and fireworks? Granted, not all of our job is going to be fireworks, but if you don't have anything that's pulling you
Mm.
through, if your why, thinking back like the Simon Sinek, start with your why. If the why you're committing yourself all of those hours every week isn't there or is really unclear, it gets to be a slog.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that. Like, I want you, Tawny, when you show up to work, to be really excited about my hair.
Yes. Of course. Yes. I want to
And
be excited to do everyone's hair too. And most of the time, I feel like I've learned a lot. I worked with a coach back in 2020 when COVID happened and we
that's
were
right.
shut down too. And I learned a lot about my industry and the fact that this coach gave me permission to
Right.
choose the clients that I work with. And
Yes.
that I don't have to just take anyone and everything on because that's what we were taught as hairdressers. I think because hairdressers were known for not making a ton of money, not being like a super prestigious job at the time, like early on in my career. And
Okay.
then she was trying to change the mentality and the perspective on the job itself. And we were taught to live in that scarcity mindset of
Yes.
you have to take any and every service. any person that seeks out your chair, you have to take them. And I do think consumer behavior changed too after COVID. I think a lot of people wanted people that specialized more so than the people that were jack of all trades. But nobody had ever told me that was okay and that you could do that. I didn't even
Right.
know that
Right.
was an option. I'm like, oh, I hate doing men's haircuts, but I guess I have to take these 14 men's haircuts. Like, because otherwise I'm not going to make any money.
No, you're absolutely right. And you hit the nail on the head with the scarcity mindset piece.
Mhm.
And for good reason, a lot of us operate out of that space. And I really think that a lot of that has been probably flipping the scarcity mindset to the abundance mindset
Oh, I love that term.
has been the theme for my last 6 months, especially. Like when I was working with my coach, and her name's Jamie Flora, she's incredible. When I was working with her and she was talking about my sabbatical, I was like, no, I can't. I absolutely can't. I can't take that time off for myself. I can't afford it. I can't, whatever it might be. And she really helped me like massage my mind to get around the idea of how I can't afford to not do it. But
Oh.
a lot, and she was absolutely right. I was fried to a place that I was like, everything was setting me off. Everything felt overwhelming. I was looking at the elephant and was unable to take a single bite. I thought I had to put the whole elephant in my mouth. I was really like at a place of complete depletion. But now coming, like I moved out to Denver by myself without a job. And literally every morning when I wake up, Tani, I open my eyes and I get to see the sunrise over Denver, which is so
Mm.
cool. And I remind myself, Sally, you chose this. This is
Mm.
your life. And it feels the same way as I'm starting to prepare to go back into the workspace. And I'm going to spend a couple of years doing independent consulting work. I've done it before, and I'm really excited about doing it again, just based on the last 10 years of really hard earned experience that I have, but also coming back into the workspace refreshed the way that I am and
Mm.
energized,
And exciting.
excited, and
Yeah.
getting to choose like you said, then getting to choose the projects that I work on. And then similar to me reminding myself every morning when I wake up in the morning, Sally, you chose, this is
Mm.
your life of abundance. The same is applying into the workspace. Sally, you chose this. You weren't just given, you don't take everything that's presented to you. Everything that we do every single day is a choice. And
Mm.
I forget that, right? Like I had an experience probably about 6 months ago where I was traveling and I was staying with a friend who was exhibiting some unhealthy behaviors. And I was really having a hard time. And I was talking to another friend of mine, and he said, Sally, you have choices. Every single thing that you do is a choice. If you choose to stay in this environment, that's your choice. If you choose to
Mm.
leave, that's your choice. We might be presented with choices that we don't like, but everything that we do is a choice. And so flipping that script so it doesn't feel like life is happening to us, we're choosing what we're doing.
Mm. Taking control.
And accountability, then, too. It requires you to
Mm.
take accountability for those choices, which isn't easy, but certainly is more empowering.
I have a really hard time because I'm a heavy people pleaser. I don't, my
Yes, you are.
my business coach right now would say I should be saying I am a recovering people pleaser, but I'm not sure how well that's going. So,
We don't know what step you're on yet.
yeah, no idea. And so I have a really hard time. And this goes for big decisions and stupid little decisions, like
Yeah.
going out to dinner somewhere. Also, like choosing
Hmm.
a restaurant. Okay, that's stupid. I should be able to do that pretty easily. But if what have learned about myself is that if my choice affects someone else in any capacity, I question it like crazy. And
Yeah.
like I said, even just like my husband and I going to dinner, if I pick a bad restaurant, that affects
It's
him.
your fault.
And it's my fault. And it's so stupid. But like, I've learned that like when I am by myself, like if he's working and I'm by myself, I can make decisions all day long. It's like the best thing ever. But anytime it is affecting someone else, I have a really hard time with it. Leaving my old salon
Mm,
was also part of that, was really, really
right?
hard too, because I knew that was going to affect the owner of my salon. And that was hurting my heart and soul because I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to make decisions that affect other people. But that's been a hard lesson for me to learn to choose myself
Yes.
and my peace and happiness and not sacrifice my peace for someone else on the
Mhm.
bigger decisions. Like I said, dinner is not that big of a deal.
But you having all of those like micro conversations within yourself about how choosing a restaurant for dinner is going to impact other people, that's draining and depleting your energy, Tawny. And
No.
it seems like I know I'm exhausted all the time.
I think
It's
I'm
really,
getting like the awareness of it is I'm working on it. I'm trying to be better about saying what I want, but then I feel like in those moments it's like my brain shuts down and I don't even know what I want. So,
that makes sense to me. I think that I was actually thinking about that leading up to our time together this morning, that as women, that's what we're taught. Like we're taught and cultured that we should show up for ourselves last. And that is the complete opposite. Often, I'm not I'm speaking in broad generalizations. I'm not targeting, but that's the opposite of the way that boys and men are raised, is that
yeah.
their decision ultimately matters. But I think about like when I don't show up for myself, you can't show up fully for the people around you either. And not everybody is deserving of you,
Mm.
Tawny. That's a
Yeah.
lesson that I'm really struggling with to learn right now. I talked to my mom about that. I called her last week in crisis because I was chatting with this new guy on a dating app, and he was really nice and really kind, and he was probably like trauma dumping, which is a whole nother thing. And I called my mom and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't feel a connection. I don't really like him, but he seems like he's really connected to me. And she's, Sally, if you can't show up for yourself when you're
Mhm.
interacting with a perfect stranger, how are you going to show up for yourself when you're interacting with somebody who you love and you're connected to? And so that to me was really powerful. And it also helps me, Tani, to know when I show up for myself. So when you make a decision for dinner based off of what it is that you want to eat, not just what your sweet husband wants to eat, note to yourself, I showed up for myself in this way. It's
Mm.
little, but for me, it makes a really big difference because that's one way that I receive love for myself, is noting when I show up. But being a people pleaser is, I have a feeling that we're all constantly going to be in recovery for that. I think it's something that we're going to have to remind ourselves to check in with ourselves all the time. And especially when we're tired or when we're fatigued or when life feels overwhelming and hard, it is easier to show up for other people than it is for ourselves. But ultimately, I don't know if you've heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
So I have tried to read that so many times. It's actually still on my like Goodreads as I'm still trying to read it. And it's just so heavy. I
Mhm.
love the concept and I really do like it, but it's a heavy read. I did have
It really
somebody
is.
tell me they listened to it and that was better. So I may try to do the audiobook instead and I might get through it
There you
better.
go, when you're walking to work. And I think even like boiling it down to its simplest point, like my body tells me when I'm doing something that is counter to what my soul wants. But we
Mhm.
often don't listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so if there are ways that you can clue in on, because often, regardless of what stage we're in as women, we have to be really in tune to our bodies. Like we know, we can tell when we're going to get our period. We can tell often when we're ovulating. We can tell, for those of us I'm in perimenopause, which is really sexy. I can tell everything.
Yeah.
And so our bodies tell us. It's just
Mhm.
whether or not we take the time to listen. And that sometimes, honestly, Connie, that's helped me stand up for myself emotionally, is when my body starts reacting. Like I was supposed to see somebody was going to come out to Denver to visit, just for a brief visit. And I got a migraine like 3 days before she was supposed to
Mhm.
come. And I was like, For me, that is an indicator that my emotional stress has reached a level that I can't handle. And so
Mm,
I can either I have to deal with the symptoms because migraines are awful, but
yeah.
I also need to deal with the root of what is causing that. Mm,
Now, did you realize right away that that was connected to that, or did it
No,
take you
no.
some reflecting to figure that out?
It took me a lot of reflecting. And if I'm being totally honest, it took me some bravery
Mm,
to, I've no, I know what my body is telling me, but I don't want to admit it often.
mhm,
My body in my relationship with my ex, my body was screaming at me. Like
mhm,
I couldn't get out of bed. I was down to 95 pounds. All my hair was falling out.
mm.
I had migraines all the time. I couldn't eat. I was throwing up every day. My body was screaming at me, and I didn't listen for years. I didn't listen because me staying in that relationship, and there's a lot of layers and complications to it, of course, as we all know, in all of our relationships there
Yeah.
are, but I didn't listen to my body. And so when that relationship ended, I said to myself, never again will I ignore my body like that. And then I did. And like we
Mm.
do. But it is like I have to be really loving and patient with myself to know that it's taken me 42 years to get to where I am. And as much as from a pop psychology standpoint, we watch like an Instagram reel and we feel like, okay, I'm super self-empowered now. I'm never going to do that again. It takes us a long time to change our behaviors and for our neural pathways to rewire themselves and for us to make different decisions.
I hate that though. Because like I wish
I
that
do too.
I wish I had the knowledge that I have now in my 20s. I really do.
Me
Like
too.
because mostly because I know that I could keep growing even more, but the fact that I learned it a decade later, like I'm like, ah, but I don't have as much time with this knowledge as as I want, and I want to keep becoming a better person and learning more about myself, but it's life's so short, and I think a lot of people don't figure that stuff out until at least their 40s, if not later.
Right. And at least they finally figure it out, first of all. And second of all, I think that as we get older, the knowledge that we have, even though we might not have as many years left on earth, we're spending our time doing things that are more meaningful. So the knowledge application is multiplied because of that. Think
Yeah.
about our 20s, like we're running around with a bunch of people but we're not really sure. We're out at clubs, we're trying on different jobs, we're doing all sorts of things that are all over the place. So even if we had that knowledge, like where it's going to be applied really dispersed out into the atmosphere. Whereas now our lives tend to be a lot more focused. And so the changes that we make have larger impacts.
Yeah, that's a good segue into let's talk about female friendships a little bit, which we've done in the
Yeah.
salon a little bit, and friendship, I guess female friendships because we're females, but
Yeah.
friendships in general, right? Like you just mentioned being in your 20s and running around. And I remember being like, I just want lots of friends. I want lots of friends and I want to hang out with friends all the time. And I didn't really pay as much attention to the quality of friends that I had at the time.
Hmm.
And now that I'm in my late 30s, almost 40s, I've really changed that perspective. So while you're going through all of this growth and stuff, tell me how that's changed for you.
Yeah. I my female my female friendships have changed a lot over the years too, as you and I have discussed. And as I look back at it, a, both in my romantic relationships, but also in my friendships, I have valued tenure and loyalty, quote unquote,
Mm,
loyalty, which is a concept that I'm really deep diving into right now. What does loyalty actually mean to me?
mhm,
But I valued like being able to say, oh, I've been friends with this person since high school was more important to me than the what that person was contributing to my life and to the friendship. And I also have a tendency to give too much of myself to friendships when people ask. So if people
mhm,
show up and they want time, energy, love, adoration, affection, I give it to them, not realizing what that's taking away from other people in my life. And probably about 15 years ago or so, I started really examining the role of my friends in my life. Like my female friendships, when I was in high school, I was friends with everyone, and I had a lot of guy friends in high school and in college and shortly after college. And some of that has changed. And in my late 20s, I started to really value, I connected up with this incredible group of women who really showed me how dynamic female friendships can be in the most positive ways. Like women who show up for you, even if they don't agree with you all the time, women who show up for you in ways that are meaningful for you, not just the ways that they like to give love, but in the ways that actually resonate with how you receive love. And honestly, if I didn't have my close girlfriends the last 3 years, I honestly don't know if I don't know how I would have come out of the other side of all of this trauma healing. And I just can't say enough about, as you get older, making sure that the people who you surround yourself with are a reflection of who you are, of course. But I also love to surround myself with women who I want to be more like, not in a way that's jealous. Jealousy
Yes.
is insidious and gross. And I understand for some people it's a natural reaction, but I would encourage you to challenge that in yourself so that you can experience more dynamic love with people. But my girlfriends, and I was really lucky when I moved out to Denver, a girlfriend of mine from when I lived out here last time had randomly reached out to me like 6 months earlier and said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me." And I said, "Oh my gosh, of course I remember you. And I'm moving back. Let's hang out." And she connected me with another group, with some other women. And so I have this really eclectic, interesting group of girlfriends already here in Denver that are all wildly successful in their own fields. And success is defined by each of them individually, but we all just show up for each other, and we do it without judgment. We do it without pretense. We do it without even necessarily always understanding why the other person is doing what they're doing, but we understand that they're coming from a place of good intention and love. So we allow each other to be our full selves, and feeling the love and support for my full self has just been, honestly, the whole dating journey since I moved out here has been fun, but finding these dynamic female friendships has been hands down the best part of my last 6 months.
It's so
Plus, I got to meet you, and we
yes.
met through a mutual, incredibly wonderful friend.
Amazing person for sure.
One of
Yeah,
my favorites.
I mean it's the competition thing and the jealousy thing is super interesting because I think that women in general, we are always in competition with each other for some reason.
We're taught to do that. We're socialized to do that.
Yeah. And
Right.
like why, I don't know, but I don't know. The whole like women supporting women is so huge right now. I actually, this is interesting. So a long time ago, I had heard that male hairdressers, gay or straight, doesn't matter, make more money than female hairdressers because, or they can make more money because women clients are more likely to listen to a man tell them like, "Oh, that looks terrible. You need to do this," and blah 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 blah. And versus hearing that from another woman, which I think is plays into this whole thing, right?
The
Because then it's like,
patriarchy extends that far? That's bullshit.
I know, isn't that interesting though? I heard that and I heard that a long time ago. It could be different now, but yeah, there's something there about like we will take criticism from men a lot better than we will take criticism from women, even if it's constructive.
I think some of that goes back to, though, the way that we're socialized is okay, the way that I was socialized, let me just say that's a little bit safer, was to seek the adoration and attention of men. And so whether my hairdresser is a gay man or a straight man, he has the male perspective and we're seeking approval from men, which I think is interesting because I don't know. I think that maybe I'm an outlier liar on this, but like when I get a compliment from a woman, like in the bathroom at a restaurant, that means way more to me than getting like catcalled walking by some guy at the bar. Like
Yeah.
when I get dressed up for the appreciation of my girlfriends, not for
Yeah.
male attention. But I understand that like I might not be the norm on that front, but it is. I actually really that's fascinating, Tawny, and it's
Yeah.
frightening.
Like I said, I heard that a long time ago. I don't know if that's changed, but it is interesting to think about because I think that also goes hand in hand with the competition side of us
Yes,
always being in competition with each other too. Because it's that bitch told me that didn't look good and she doesn't know what she's talking about.
right.
And it is. I don't know. I don't know why they've pit us against each other, but
And some of it is also then why do we continue to allow it, right?
And
I
social
think
media doesn't help either, right? Because you see people living these lives that
extravagant, beautiful
aren't
lives.
probably that accurate and they've got their own issues too, but they make it look like it's this beautiful, wonderful, full life. And for some people, I'm sure it is, but I think a lot of the times that's just for show on social media. And so that doesn't help because then we look at that and I think it's easy to compare ourselves to everybody on social media too. And that's another thing. Comparison is I guess that's the same as competition basically, but comparing your
Kind
life
of.
to someone else's. And I just part of why I started this whole podcast is to just prove that like everyone has their shit and
Hmm?
no one gets out of this life
No,
without
unscathed.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. No, life is hard. Life is really hard. Yeah, and I made the decision, I don't know, like in my late 20s to stop using Facebook. I had to use it for
Oh,
my
yeah.
campaign, but I
Mhm.
stopped using it and I'm on Instagram, but I genuinely check it maybe 4 times a year because I recognized a number of years ago, like as soon as I start scrolling more than 30 seconds, my mental health goes down immediately. It's
Mm.
like a proportionate response. And so it means that I have no idea what people are talking about at dinner parties because I'm like so unhip to the zeitgeist, but it makes me happier.
Do
And
you find that with that though, you have to put a little bit more effort into some of your friendships and stuff like that?
yes,
Because
yes.
I will say, I have one very good friend that I adore, but she lives in Arizona, so she's not
Hmm.
here. And I have to put a lot more effort into that friendship because she's not seeing my posts and stuff on social media. And it feels a little bit weird. A lot of the times it's me reaching out and being like, hey, how are you doing? What's new? But I have to, instead of just being like, oh, yeah, I'm good, in order for us to keep that connection, to be like, oh, this is what's actually going on with me, and
Yes,
this and that, and we're
yes.
traveling here and we're going there because I have to think of the fact that she is
Not
seeing
seeing.
any of those posts on social media.
I do. I give my friends a lot of credit for that too. That when I made the decision to stop using Facebook, like I remember a couple of my friends having the discussion with, this is going to mean that we're, and my friend, actually one of my girlfriends called me out on it. She's, Sally, this is going to mean you have to be more proactive about telling me what's
Yeah.
actually going on in your life, which is not something that I am really great about.
Oh.
I'm working on trying to be a lot more open, but I've been a closed book person for the lion's share of my life, which was like a trauma response. It was just
Yeah.
learned behavior. But I remember, like, I've had some of my best friends have said, Sally, I know you, I know your heart, and I love you, but I don't know anything about you. And
Hmm.
that was a wake up call to me that I can choose to continue to live that life if I want to. But if I really want these enriching experiences where people love the whole of me, then I have to show up for them in a different way. So going back to social media, like I had to change the way that I was interacting with friends and my friends. I have the greatest friends in the world. I'm so blessed and they're remarkably patient with me. Yeah, the relationship is different. It means
Yeah.
like it picking up the phone a little bit more often, which is old school, or just being, to your point, adding more context to text messages or
Yeah.
something so that you do have to be a lot more intentional.
Yeah, I've always been a very open book. I'm one of those people. I'll spew my guts to everybody practically. So like I'm just an open book. And I if I bottle it up inside, it eats me alive. So like
Same.
I've always been that person. And I actually realized with sometime within the last probably 10 years, 5 to 10 years, that I very much value that in other people. Like I have had friends
Mm,
in the past who have not been as open about their feelings about things or things they're going through. I actually had a
mm.
friend a long time ago who I knew her marriage was falling apart before she even told me because she was not open with me. I knew through other avenues. And I had a hard time keeping that friendship up because I was like, if you're not going to be real with me, I don't know. That's how I connect with people is
Yeah.
the realness and the rawness. And like I said, I know that everybody has their shit. And so like hiding all that and not being open and talking to me about your feelings, I don't know how to connect with somebody like that. So it would
Yeah.
be really like I just don't have those friends as much. And so yeah, having to put that effort forth is I don't know.
That's a
That's where I find the deeper connections.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that, Tawny. And that's a really interesting perspective. I'm glad that you stepped that out because I really get that. So mine, when I was a little girl, I was the victim of child sexual assault. And the first people that I told about it didn't believe me. And
Ah,
so that's why I stopped talking because I didn't want to. You don't want to not be believed. That's incredibly traumatic and has had really long-standing, long-term implications to this day. But also the look that you got on people's
mm,
faces. I did not feel loved or accepted or taken care of. I felt othered and ostracized, want to feel like as a child who's just experienced abuse. And so that's where it comes from. So for me, it was a protective mechanism.
yeah.
And I didn't fully understand it probably until my mid 20s. And
Mm,
then once I understood it, it had served me up until that point and continued to serve me, or
yeah.
so I thought. So I kept doing that. But what I realized coming out of this, my last relationship, was part of the leverage he was able to use, but also part of why I stayed so long was because I stayed silent. And oftentimes I didn't want to admit how bad things were because then I would have to do something about it.
Yeah.
But it also, you carry this sense of shame. And same with the abuse as a child, you just feel shame. And so you want to hide things. It's like sunlight is the best disinfectant. And really, like me, what I thought served me for so long, this like protective compartmentalization, you're absolutely right. It prevented me from making real connection with people. And seeking real connection with people is the most vulnerable thing that we can do as human
Mhm.
beings. And so that's really scary. And I
Yeah.
understand I'm not mad at myself for the way that I conducted myself in friendships and relationships for all those years. It served a purpose, it makes sense. But I'm glad that I am now living a life that is truly in pursuit of those more connected and deep relationships. It's still hard for me. It's
Yeah.
still not easy for me to be honest, but not honest. It's still hard for me to be upfront about
Vulnerable.
what I'm yeah, about what I'm experiencing, but doing it little by little and using those opportunities for people to show you that they're going to show up for you and they're going to love you is incredibly rewarding.
I love that. You've done so much work. You're so beautiful. I love
Oh,
it.
thank you. Life's hard. Life is really hard.
Life is so hard. So another topic I wanted to touch on too
Yeah.
is so you shared with me that you did not want children in this lifetime.
Mhm.
And we've talked a little bit about the overlapping feelings and comments and things that we've both gotten over the years, even though like I am in a different path, but also maybe ending up in the same path. So,
We don't know yet, Tommy. Your story
yeah.
is still being written.
Yes, this is true. Let's talk a little bit about that and the stuff we've talked about before, I guess, as well. So what is that? Because I think not a lot of people understand that choice to not have kids. And I think a lot of women are like,
Yeah.
What? Why would you choose
What's
that?
wrong with
So,
you?
yeah. So, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So I really, from a very young age, and I can't pinpoint it, but I remember identifying that I didn't want to get married and I didn't want to have children. And I am sure some of that comes from childhood trauma and my parents divorcing and whatever, but it's a decision that I've stuck to, not just out of blind loyalty, but out of intentional choice for me. And it has, honestly, the hardest part has been the disapproval that I've
Hmm.
received from other women. Like somehow my decision to not have children is, I don't know, is it a reflection on like the whole of womankind? Sure. No, it's not. It's, of
It's
course it's not.
not, but they make you feel that way.
And yeah, yes, they can, certainly. And it was especially being from the Midwest. When I was in my early 20s, I was still in college. And so I had a quote unquote excuse for not having children and not getting married. And then it was like people kept saying, "Oh, you'll change your mind. Don't worry, you'll change your mind.
Mhm.
Oh, you're going to change your mind." And I actually, in my mid 20s, was in a relationship for about 4 years. And the reason that we split was because he wanted to get married and have kids, and I didn't. And we were headed in different directions, anyways. But I really had to stand 10 toes down and like, why do I not want this? And for me, much as I understand it is for other women, you have an innate desire to carry and bear and have children. I have never felt that. I have never felt, it does not mean that, just to set the record straight, it does not mean that I don't love children. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that I'm selfish.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that I'm career obsessed. It means that I am doing what is most organic and authentic to who I am as a person. And it honestly, I remember finally having a conversation with my mom, probably in my mid 30s, and she teared up a little bit and she said she finally believed me that I didn't want to have kids. I think and I used to hear from my friends all the time. My ex was a very handsome guy. Think about how beautiful your babies would be and how could you
Because
have.
that's why you should have kids.
That's exactly why you should have kids, because they would be supermodels.
To be fair, my sister and brother-in-law make very adorable children, and I'm not just saying that as the auntie,
I
but
don't know,
when
Auntie.
when my sister gave birth to my niece in the hospital, I went in there and I was holding my niece and I was like, "Are you sure you don't want more? Because they're so damn
They're
cute.
so cute. Yes.
You make the cutest. You guys have like such good genetics for this, but obviously, definitely don't agree that's the reason you should have kids."
No, you should have kids because you want to have. If you're in a position to do that and you want to give love, again, it's not that I don't want to give love. And I've had the opportunity to, I've been an aunt since I was 7. And I was a stepmom for 10 plus years. And that was I would not change any of that. I love that child more than I love myself. But I just never wanted to have kids. And it was really the judgment that I'm really grateful that I have other girlfriends who had the same outlook as I did.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would I have two in those days. So that was like in my mid 20s, but then even through my and in my 30s, like I was a covert rebel because I was in a long-term relationship and we were raising a child. And so people didn't question me anymore,
Ah,
which is bullshit. Like nobody should have questioned me to begin with. Like it's
yes.
my life, it's my choice. And the way that people react to my decisions is it's about them. It's not about me.
Yes.
And so but that's really hard to accept when you're a
Mhm.
people pleaser, when you're an overachiever, when you're an whatever it might be. Like I got a lot of judgment from other women, mostly people saying that I'm selfish. And
Just
which is
wild to
wild.
me. But also,
Yeah.
so what? If you choose, yeah, when you don't have kids, there are a lot of freedoms you have that people with kids do not, but that doesn't make you selfish. Like,
No. What?
Yeah, that boggles my mind, that one.
It's really wild. And I think ultimately, like, we we live in a time where there's so much choice, and oh, thank God. I really pray to God that choice continues to be.
Yes, same.
But I think it's it really really incredibly important that we support women for the independent individual women who they are. Like, you and I have talked, Tawny, you sharing your stories and your struggles with me about your desire to have children and then your struggles with infertility have been so incredibly moving and
Mhm.
thought provoking for me. And I think it's just as important as that we support women who don't want to have
Mhm.
children. And part of that is, and you and I have talked about this, like, what does life and legacy look like when you don't have children? And that's different. And it's
Yeah.
hard. I don't have the answer to it. We're
And that's interesting too, because I think we're so conditioned to grow up and have kids as women.
yes,
That is, if you really break it down to
that's our
caveman
purpose.
times,
Yeah,
that is
that's our
our
purpose.
purpose, right? Is to bear and carry children. And yeah, so then when you can choose that, not to,
Mm,
or in my case, not choose it and be forced
yeah.
into trying to figure out what that life looks like it's a pretty intense identity crisis for sure. And yeah, and if you don't have the answer, I certainly don't have the
Well, and that's
answer.
part of it is like there's not a whole lot of modeling for
Yes.
what it looks like. And it's something, yeah, there's not a lot of modeling for what women who don't have children, like, what is, that's one thing that I hear from people a lot too, is who's going to be at your deathbed.
I've thought about that. I actually Colin
I'll
and
show
I
up.
actually really need to make a will because we've got investment properties and we've got stuff. And I just kept thinking in my mind, like, when we have kids, we'll just make a will
Yeah,
and give it
right,
all to the kids. And then, but
right.
now it's okay, if that's not a reality, I really
Who
need
is
to
it?
think about if something happens to us. I don't want my stuff to just go to whoever, or whatever, or somebody else to make that decision. And so it is interesting. And then as our parents get older and I'm watching like all of us step up to take care of them and things like
Mm.
that, oh man, who's going to
Who's
do that?
going to
And
do this?
when I say that to Colin, we have a niece and a nephew, and I'm like, they have their own parents. They can't take care of us too. Like,
I'm counting on my nieces and nephews to help take care of me for sure.
you have a lot more than I do, though.
I do. But Tony, you're an even more fun aunt than I am. And so
Thank
you're
you.
totally earning all of the support from them when if and when the time comes.
Yeah, but also I don't think that's where our brains should go because
No,
there are people that end up estranged from their children and they're not at
totally.
their deathbed. I had a neighbor, old lady neighbor, she died a couple years ago. And the family has reached out to us because we're neighbors and they live out of state and they're like, "Hey, if you ever find any squatters at the house or whatever, let us know." So we've been in touch with the family, but they were estranged from her and she died alone. And even if you have
Oh,
kids, is my point, that doesn't mean they're going to be at your deathbed.
that's true. And it's not a reason to have children either.
Yes.
But yeah, so it is interesting. The question then of legacy becomes like, has to become even more external to ourselves than it would if we had a natural, I was gonna say natural selection, but that's not right. Like a
Yeah.
lineage, like
Yeah.
natural heirs. But it does change the vantage point for me, at least. Okay, so I'm 42 now and I'm really healthy and I think incredibly vibrant, but
I agree.
I still like, what is it like, what do I want people to remember about me, and how do I start continuing to lay some of that groundwork? And some of it for me is like my legacy with my nieces and nephews. And so when I moved out here, I have to be a lot more intentional about those relationships, but also then like external to myself. As I'm building this beautiful vibrant life here in Denver, I'm simultaneously thinking about my legacy. And so how do I start considering what I want my impact on the world to be, which is
Mm.
that's a big question. And I'm sure one that a lot of people have around our age, but I think the proposition looks a little bit different when you don't have children.
And yeah, I guess that's probably where the midlife crisis comes through too.
Not going to get a Corvette anytime soon or a
Dang.
20-year-old boyfriend.
Yeah. I think that's where it comes from though, too, is like
Yeah,
you get
totally.
to this like halfway point in life and you're
Mhm.
like, wait, what does this
Ooh.
actually look like when, like we talked about earlier in your 20s and even in your 30s, a bit like you're just having fun and you're not really thinking about it and you think you have all the time in the world. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, wait. But I don't, I really wish we could change the mentality of that is a woman's purpose is and if
Right.
you don't have children and I think that's what's been so hard for me too like and I've struggled with this in a different way of I sometimes feel and no one has ever said this to me but I sometimes feel like people are like if you wanted them bad enough you have like why haven't you done this or why haven't you done that or I put on myself like oh I haven't done enough
Oh,
because I
Tawny.
haven't ended up with a child. And there's probably other things I could try and do. Adoption being one of those is always one that comes up. But
Sure.
I think that brings in the fear comes in of, okay, I'm less than because
Yeah.
I have not been able to do this. And I think that when you choose it, people make you feel less than because you chose not to. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we change that stigma. I think women are the only ones that can really change. Men, I guess, can too because they want us to have the babies and not work. So sometimes.
Oh, sometimes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Sometimes.
think part of it is really like supporting the women in our lives for who they are,
Yeah.
not for who we want them to be. I didn't understand. One of my best friends had her first kid when we were like 23, and
Wow.
I didn't get it. I was like, what in the heck is going on? Yes, of course, I'm happy like to help babysit and whatever, but I didn't understand it. But it didn't mean I didn't show up for baby showers. It didn't mean I
Mm,
didn't go to the hospital. It didn't mean I loved her for who she was and for what she wanted and where she was in her life, not because of how it reflected on me, but because of who she was. And so
mm,
I think the more conditions we put on people, the less ability we have to actually connect with them.
mm,
And the same goes for just because women make different decisions than what you or I would make doesn't mean they're any less worthy of love and respect. It just means
mhm.
they've walked a different road that has led them to where they are.
Yeah. And we all have different choices and paths in all
For
different
sure.
walks of life. So,
For sure.
yeah. And so that goes back to what you said earlier, like supporting each other, even regardless of if we agree or don't agree, like still loving and supporting each other.
I'm not saying like support people, your friends who are like out robbing banks and
Well,
things like
yeah.
that. Like
Yeah.
it's
But
not
like you
blanket.
said, your friend having
Right.
kids and you not having kids is the perfect example of if you have a mutual respect for that decision and you
Mhm.
can still show up and support each other in that, then I think that then the friendship can sustain that.
For sure.
Another thing I ran into, and I don't know if you've run into this as well, is some of my friends that had kids, because most of my friends have kids. I have very few
Yeah.
that don't. Some of them lost themselves so much in motherhood. I no longer had anything to like contribute.
Connect.
Like we couldn't, yeah, I couldn't relate to what they were going through and what they were doing. And I found that the women who were able to separate themselves a little bit from motherhood, which unfortunately I think is a little bit of a frowned upon thing too, which shouldn't be
It
because
is.
women should keep their as much
Identity.
as they can. Those are the ones that I've been able to connect with on a deeper level and not the ones that have thrown themselves completely into motherhood
Mhm.
because that's just ends up being all they want to talk about. And I can't contribute to that.
Relate. And I think it's interesting to also, and some of this comes with just experience of living longer, is that those friendships that maybe have waned because the person is like really caught up in whatever is in front of her, it doesn't mean that door is shut forever on that friendship. It just
That's
means
true.
that's the phase of life where she is. And I think sometimes when there's that like dissonance around people who have kids versus those who don't, and if I have to hear you wouldn't understand, you're not a mom, if I hear that again, I want to rip my hair out. I get it. It is very different to have children, but but it's a kind of like passive aggressive dig that's often made at women who don't have children. And it's incredible. There's just a better way to phrase it,
Mhm.
friends. But I think that sometimes we try to retrofit relationships based on what they were in our current circumstances. And that's where breaks happen in relationships. Whereas it would be nice if we could just say, acknowledge, listen, we're in very different points in our life. Before we do damage to one
Mm.
another, to the friendship, let's just acknowledge that and take a break. Or because we all go through shit, and there are times where we can't be friends, we can't be show up as good friends, we can't show up as good humans. Sometimes it feels
Because you're just like at
overwhelmed.
capacity for
Yeah,
what you're dealing with whatever you're going through, that you don't
absolutely.
have the capacity to contribute to other relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
And as women, we're supposed to just take on more and more and
Mm.
not, and so it's hard for us to say no. But I was just talking to a friend about this the other day. She's dealing with something similar in one of her relationships with a girlfriend. And I just think that the responsible thing to do is to be, and this is the pot calling the kettle black, because I've failed at this miserably, but I'm trying to do better. Is for me to say, I'm at capacity. I cannot take on one more thing. I
Mm.
need to take a pause or a timeout before I do irreparable damage. Like I said, going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, I stayed in my job longer than I should have. And I worry that there was some damage that was done because I was hanging on to something that
Mhm.
fit and worked in my past, but didn't work in my present.
Mhm.
And I want to make different decisions moving forward so that I'm honest about what I can take on and how I can show up. And then what is just outside of my ability.
Which is so hard because then that comes for me, that comes down to the people pleaser
People
thing.
pleasing.
Like
Yes.
to say that to someone and have, if they haven't done the work on themselves and they don't understand that, they're not going to be receptive to that and they're going to be upset and hurt. And I know you shouldn't care, but
It's hard. It's impossible not to care.
it
It's
is.
absolutely impossible not to care. And my mother is a retired therapist, and we could do a whole episode on that. But ever since we were young, she would say to us, what other people think about you is none of your business, which is very true. Also incredibly not helpful to tell a 5-year-old, for God's sakes. Like, what in the world? But honestly, it's something that I'm trying to embrace now. I went on this date on Sunday. We went for a nice little walk around the Botanic Gardens, and he sent me a text message the next day and he said, you were interrupting me, which is a clear sign that you're hostile towards men. Yeah. So what he thinks about me is none of my business. It's a reflection on him. So going back to the people pleasing thing, like regardless of if other people in your life if they haven't done the work, they can't absorb it. You can take a deep breath knowing that you are living and conducting yourself according to your standards, which
Mm,
is how you show up for yourself too.
yeah. Ugh. Loving yourself is hard.
Oh my gosh, it's the hardest. It's the hardest.
It's
And
so
yet
hard.
it's the most transformative relationship you can have.
And I think going back to the selfish thing too, like I think because when women have children, they are expected to pour their whole life and soul
Of
into the children, and you are
course.
considered selfish in our society if you don't or you choose yourself
Hmm.
sometime. And obviously, my friends who do choose themselves are great mothers.
Right.
And sometimes maybe even better mothers because
Better
they're
mothers because
both.
they're showing up for themselves. They're loving
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah,
Yeah. And so, but I think that's part of our conditioning too, right? Is like we're conditioned as
totally.
women to be moms, to have children, and God forbid you be selfish and choose yourself. And it is so hard to do that, even taking kids out of the situation too.
Yes.
We're
Right.
just not conditioned and taught in our society to be that way. And I hope that the
Right.
younger generations are being taught that a little bit more, but I don't know.
I think there's a little bit more of that, at least from what I'm from what I'm hearing and seeing. But yeah, you bring up a really interesting point, Tawny, that even though I didn't have children, I still wasn't choosing myself. I was choosing work. I was choosing my romantic partner. I was choosing my family. I was choosing all sorts of other people, not myself. And I think going back to the conditioning piece, like there's nothing selfish oftentimes about what women are doing. There's just different choices that are being made.
Yeah. Yeah. But in reality, if a man chooses his career over having children, nobody will question it.
Most of them do, because they get to continue their career and grow in their career without, a lot of them don't take time off work. And so they get to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah. And
Not to vilify men. And that's changing a lot too. But
it is. You see a lot more like stay-at-home dads now too.
And paternity leave.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Like
Right.
and sometimes frowned upon for them too. They get a lot of
Flack.
difficult, what am I trying to say? They get judged and stuff too.
Their masculinity gets questioned somehow if they're not out. Yeah, which honestly, the most selfless thing you can do is raise children. And so regardless of who's doing it.
But just because you
we're
choose
grateful
not to do that, or that's not the path you want to take, does not mean you're selfish or selfish.
Selfish, no. And it
selfish. I'm going to combine
selfish. There you go. It also, I just also want to put out there, it doesn't mean that we hate children.
Yes. Is that something you've gotten a lot?
Yes, a ton. Like somehow when I told people I didn't want to have kids, it's you might as well put the witch's hat and like the nose with the mole on it. And I'm like in there baking babies or something. People thought that I hated children and that I was really selfish. And why do we jump to those extremes? I love kids. And like I said earlier, being an aunt and being able to be the fun friend for my friends' kids is like the greatest thing.
I love niece and nephew. It's so much fun to be an auntie. So.
I totally agree. Totally.
And I will say, as I'm coming to terms with and accepting childless life, that's one thing that I'm like, it is fun to send them home.
And to get a full 8 hours of sleep in your own bed without little legs and boogers everywhere. And yeah.
I mean, I adore them. And I know if I had my own kids, I would adore them too. But yeah, I think that's how I'm working on my healing, is just trying to I have to find the little gold nuggets in all of this, because otherwise, if I sit here and berate myself for not having children, I'll never heal from this. So
you'll never heal, and you'll never move forward anywhere, because this is so foundational to who you are, Tawny. And
well, thank you for sharing that perspective though on the childless by choice.
Childless by choice. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm in, the childless not by choice community. There's the childless by choice, and right.
Like, there's overlaps in the Venn diagram.
I also want to say, and I'm going to speak for myself and not for the entire infertility community, because I think that women who chose not to have children also have a really hard time with handling maybe conversations and stuff with those of us who wanted it and didn't get it. I think that there's sometimes, I've experienced with some friends and stuff, that there's some guilt there and whatever. But I just want to say from my perspective that I do not hold that against anybody. And I hope that most people in the infertility world also feel that way. That, I don't know, it never bothered me, the people that chose not to have kids. I was never like, why the heck not? Like, I'm over here trying so hard, and you could probably have one tomorrow. I've never ever felt that way. And so I don't know if I don't know how many people you've come across in my position, but
no. And I guess to a certain extent, part what I said earlier, Tawny, that I'm so grateful for is how open you've been with me about this, because it really has increased my understanding and certainly only my level of empathy. But I certainly understand if there are some feelings of sadness or hostility, or but taking that out on somebody, feeling them and taking it out on somebody are two very different things. And I think that there's actually an opportunity for further unity between women who don't have children, regardless of why, for us to be shaping some of the conversations that we're having about what it means to be a woman today.
Yes. And it doesn't, moms are great. People who have kids are great, but you don't have to go that route. And we're very lucky in the time that we're living in, that we can have careers and we can have some independence and we can choose that lifestyle if we want to. There were women, even let's go 50 years back, 60 years back, that couldn't choose that.
Nope. No, I don't take that for granted at all. That, yes, I certainly have experienced stigma and judgment, whatever, along the way. But the women who went before me paved the ground so that this would be a little bit less uncomfortable to walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we could just keep going for days, I think. So
Yes, I love talking to you, Tawny.
same. Okay, so I just have a couple of final questions for you.
Okay.
So now that you've done all of this amazing healing and you're getting all these new perspectives in your life, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is when I can stand 10 toes down on the decisions that I make, knowing that they're rooted in the authentic version of Sally. And the foundational principle of that has to be love of myself. I don't think that I could honestly have said that I loved myself until maybe 15 months ago. And it has been it's the greatest love of your life. And I know that, whatever. Who is that? Is that Whitney Houston? I'm going to start playing that song for myself. It sounds cheesy. And I really didn't understand it. I knew I didn't love myself, but I didn't know how to get there. And I wish I had the formula for how I did it. It took a lot of pain to get there, but recognizing that I am in charge of my life and taking the bull by the horns for the first time is my definition of success.
I love that. And I love that it's not just like money and job related
Oh
because
God, no.
I think that's
No.
another thing. That's a lesson I'm learning the older I get too, because I think that's another thing we're conditioned to do is to think that
Sure.
success is becoming Jeff Bezos or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But like everyone's level of success is so different in their lives. And it doesn't have to be become a billionaire and the CEO of a giant company. Like it doesn't
Right.
have to be that. And then what tools like would you share with my listeners that may have helped you through some of this stuff? Is there anything that really pops out specifically?
Let's see. I don't know if I would necessarily speak to any tools. For people who struggle with like codependency, I don't know if you've the language of letting go. I don't know if you've read that, or there's a daily affirmation book that also really helps Tani with people pleasing. Like
Oh,
how do you the
what is
language
it
of
called?
the language of letting go.
I'm gonna add it to my list.
I would highly recommend it. There's a daily affirmation that just helps you realize what in your life you have control over and what you do not and need to let go. And so that when I talk about codependency, it's not necessarily on a relationship or on a human, it's on like external versus internal factors. And so I think that one I would highly recommend checking that out.
So you're quite the reader
I
then.
am. Yes, I am obnoxiously curious. Like I'm that annoying person in the classroom who's keeping you there until the end of class because I'm raising my hand and asking a lot of questions. And I'm okay with that being me.
Yes, I love that. Okay, do you have any final parting words then for my listeners? You've got some good nuggets that you just put in there in my questions, but anything else that you want to throw out there for anyone
I don't think
listening?
so. I just want to thank you, Tani, for those of you listening. When Tani and I were together last week, you expressed to me that you doing your podcast is part of how is part of how you find happiness. And by you doing things that make you happy, for me, it inspires me to prioritize doing the things that make me happy. So thank you for leading by example.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm glad that I'm doing that.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, this has been an amazing conversation. And like I said, I feel like we could just keep going for forever, which is why our
Agreed.
appointments are always so amazing because
I know.
I love the
Thank you,
conversations.
Tani.
We should maybe record an appointment and then
There you go. We'll just
live stream our conversations in the salon because they're just so good and deep and I love it. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful to Kelsey for bringing us together.
Yes. Thank you,
too.
Kelsey. We love you.
Shout out to Kelsey, who's an amazing human as well. So,
Amen.
yeah. All right, my dear.
Thank you, Tani. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.